Just spray GLH on and it instantly...
This is how it comes from the makers.
Strangest 1950s to 70s inventions you don't know were banned. They were visionary. They were bizarre. They were sometimes utterly useless, but they were never boring. Do you know that in the early 1900s, babies were kept in wire cages hanging outside apartment windows? You won't believe the reason why. Let's explore forgotten futures as we count down the 25 quirkiest inventions from the golden age of American innovation.
And we liven it up with my favorite Christmas gift, Mr. Microphone.
Hey.
Number 25. Mr. Microphone, 1978.
Hey, good looking, we'll be back to pick you up later.
Has any product tagline been simultaneously so catchy and so cringeworthy? Introduced in 1978 by Ronco, Mr. Microphone transformed any ordinary person into an amateur radio host by transmitting voice to any nearby FM radio.
I'm on the radio.
This wireless microphone opened new possibilities for home entertainment during the rise of personal audio devices. Invented by Ron Popeil, the legendary pitchman behind countless as-seen-on-TV products, Mr. Microphone became an instant hit. The commercial showed young people driving around, broadcasting pickup lines to attractive pedestrians, behavior that would likely result in harassment charges today. The sound quality was mediocre at best, with frequent static and limited range, but that didn't dampen enthusiasm for this $14.88 novelty. At parties, family gatherings, and sleepovers, everyone wanted their turn at impromptu stardom. Did your family own one? And more importantly, did anyone ever actually pick you up after hearing your broadcast? Number 24. Pigeon Camera, 1970s. Ever wonder how spies gathered intelligence before satellites and drones? In the 1970s, the CIA developed one of history's most unusual surveillance tools, the Pigeon Camera. Resembling a tiny reverse backpack, these miniature cameras were strapped to homing pigeons for covert aerial photography missions. But why pigeons? These ubiquitous urban birds could fly lower than planes, capturing detailed images while remaining virtually undetectable as they soared over sensitive targets. The ingenious system used specially designed lightweight cameras that automatically took photographs at preset intervals. Agents would attach the device, set a delay timer, and release the bird over strategic locations. The pigeon's natural homing instinct ensured both bird and film returned to base after the mission. Though the specific targets and images remain classified to this day, the program represented a fascinating marriage of natural behavior and espionage technology. Did anyone ever glance up and wonder why that ordinary pigeon had such unusual posture? Little did they know they were witnessing Cold War surveillance in action. Number 23. Pocket Fisherman, 1972.
Popeil's Pocket Fisherman. Men, women, youngsters can cast almost like experts the very first time.
The biggest fishing invention since the hook, proclaimed Ron Popeil about his Pocket Fisherman, the compact fishing rod that promised angling adventures anywhere, anytime. Introduced in 1972, this 14-inch collapsible fishing rod with built-in reel became the signature product of Popeil's Ronco company and an icon of American consumer culture. But did it actually catch fish? That almost seemed beside the point. The genius of the Pocket Fisherman wasn't its fishing capability, but its aspirational appeal. The commercial showed a businessman spotting a river while driving, pulling over, and retrieving his Pocket Fisherman from the glove compartment, transforming an ordinary commute into an impromptu fishing expedition. Priced at $19.95, about $135 today, millions sold despite mixed reviews from serious anglers. The product remains in production 5 decades later, outlasting countless serious fishing innovation. The Pocket Fisherman perfectly embodies the optimistic spirit of mid-century American gadgetry, the belief that the right invention could squeeze adventure into even the busiest modern life. Number 22. The Flying Bedstead, 1953 to 1957. Ever looked at a bed frame and thought, with the right engines, that could fly?
Flying bedstead was tested recently at the Rolls-Royce flight establishment in Nottinghamshire.
In 1953, Rolls-Royce engineers apparently did, creating the Flying Bedstead, officially known as the Thrust Measuring Rig. This bizarre contraption resembled nothing so much as a metal bed frame balanced atop 2 massive jet engines pointing straight down. What could possibly go wrong? As the world's first jet-lift aircraft, this pioneering vertical takeoff and landing VTOL vehicle laid crucial groundwork for future aircraft like the Harrier jump jet. Testing began in 1954 at Hucknall Airfield in England, with the first free flight occurring in 1957. The entire control system was manual. Pilots used small rockets at the rig's corners to stabilize and maneuver the unwieldy craft. Despite its ungainly appearance and perilous operation, the flying bedstead successfully proved that jet engines could lift and sustain an aircraft without wings. Would you have volunteered to test pilot this skeletal flying machine, essentially balancing atop two roaring jet engines with nothing but your reflexes keeping you from disaster? Number 21. Mono wheels, 1950s to 1960s. Who needs two wheels when you can have just one? Mono wheels. Single-wheeled vehicles where the rider sits inside or atop a massive wheel captured the imagination of mid-century inventors and daredevils alike. These futuristic-looking contraptions promised the ultimate in minimalist transportation, but delivered something closer to performance art with a high injury rate. The core problem? Physics. When riders hit the brakes, the natural momentum sent them into what enthusiasts called gerbling, continuing to rotate forward inside the wheel. Steering presented another challenge, as the gyroscopic effect of the large wheel made precise navigation nearly impossible. Despite these flaws, mono wheels enjoyed periodic bursts of popularity through the 1950s and 60s. Their inherent instability and impracticality ultimately confined them to circuses, parades, and novelty exhibitions rather than mainstream transportation. Would you dare to take a spin in one of these precariously balanced people movers? Number 20. Gyro boats, 1960s.
Gyroboat, the brand new idea of a young American ex-aircraft designer.
Ever looked at a helicopter and thought, I'd like to strap that to my fishing boat? In the 1960s, someone did exactly that, creating the gyro boat, a terrifying hybrid of boat, kite, and helicopter rotor. These flying boats featured a small hull with an attached rotor that generated lift when pulled by a speedboat, allowing users to literally fly over the water. What could possibly go wrong? The assembly instructions were alarmingly casual. Just get all those bolts on the rotor finger tight, before being pulled at 20 miles per hour behind a powerboat. Safety features were essentially non-existent. No emergency release, no automatic rotor stop, and certainly no protection from the spinning blades if you crashed. Surprisingly, these aerial guillotines never achieved mainstream popularity, though they maintained a small but dedicated following of thrill seekers. The gyro boat stands as a monument to an era when consumer safety regulations were, shall we say, still evolving. Number 19. Briefcase alarm, 1970s. Before Find My iPhone, there was the executive briefcase alarm, the most dramatic anti-theft device of the 1970s. Activated by remote control when your briefcase was stolen, this security system unleashed billowing red smoke and an ear-splitting alarm that rivaled a rock concert in volume. Talk about making a scene. Developed during a period of rising urban crime rates, these briefcase security systems offered businessmen peace of mind when carrying important documents. The theory was simple. The smoke would draw attention to the thief while potentially marking them with red dye for easier identification. The reality? Most thieves simply abandoned the screaming, smoking briefcase and fled, leaving the owner to explain the situation to concerned police officers. While impractical by modern standards, these dramatic security devices represent the ingenuity of pre-digital anti-theft technology. Did your father or grandfather ever protect his business papers with this attention-grabbing alarm system? Number 18. Smell-O-Vision, 1960.
Smell-O-Vision coming up.
Ever wished you could smell what's happening on screen? In 1960, Swiss inventor Hans Laube introduced Smell-O-Vision, a system that released synchronized odors to individual theater seats during film screenings. This ambitious 4D technology made its debut and swan song in the film Scent of Mystery, where plot points hinged on various aromas that audiences could actually smell. The technology used a complex network of pipes connected to vials of 30 different scents, triggered by the film's soundtrack. Advertisements boldly proclaimed, first they moved, then they talked, now they smell. Despite considerable publicity, technical issues plagued the release. Some scents lingered too long, others arrived too late, and ventilation problems left theaters with a muddled olfactory mess. While Smell-O-Vision quickly faded, the concept periodically resurfaces, most notably in Disney's scratch and sniff cards distributed for specific films. Would you attend a Smell-O-Vision revival, or are some cinematic experiences better left to sight and sound alone? Number 17. Chia Pets, 1977.
There's a new pet.
Chia.
Chia Pet.
Chia. Has any advertising jingle embedded itself more effectively in the American consciousness? Introduced in 1977 by Joseph Enterprises, Chia Pets offered the perfect solution for those seeking pet ownership without walks, vet bills, or litter boxes. These terracotta figurines, originally just a ram, but expanding to include turtles, puppies, and eventually pop culture icons, transformed from bald pottery to lush fur in just days. The concept was brilliantly simple. Spread moistened chia seeds over grooved terracotta, keep damp, and watch green sprouts emerge. Costing about $15, Chia Pets became a Christmas staple, selling over 500,000 units annually during their peak popularity. Their cultural significance was confirmed when the New York Times included them in a time capsule to be opened in the year 3000. Today, the original manufacturer continues to produce new designs annually. Did your family ever gather around to watch your ceramic puppy grow its grass coat? Number 16. Baby cages, 1950. Would you suspend your infant in a wire cage outside a third-story window? In the 1950s, urban parents did exactly that. Baby cages, wire enclosures attached to apartment windows, allowed city dwellers to give their infants fresh air and sunshine without leaving their apartments. Suspended above busy streets, these cages were essentially suspended porches for babies, emerging from early 20th century health concerns about weak constitution in city children. Baby cages promised improved appetite, better digestion, and robust health through fresh air exposure. Marketed as a practical solution for apartment-dwelling parents without access to yards or parks, the cages featured wire mesh construction and occasionally a small roof for sun protection. Safety features were minimal by modern standards, typically just the cage's attachment to the window frame. While horrifying to contemporary parents, these dangling nurseries represent the evolving nature of child-rearing practices and urban challenges. When did sensible parenting win out over hanging babies out windows? Number 15. The button ear, 1970s.
Problem with buttons is they always fall off. This Christmas, get them the new automatic button ear too.
How many times have you lost a button at the worst possible moment? In the 1970s, Ronco offered salvation for the sewing challenged with the button ear, an ingenious handheld device that reattached buttons without needle and thread. This plastic gadget used small, clear fasteners that pushed through the fabric and button, then locked in place with a simple squeeze. Advertised with the promise, attaches buttons in just 5 seconds. The button ear was particularly popular among seniors with arthritis, college students with limited domestic skills, and anyone who dreaded rummaging through sewing kits. The device loaded like a stapler with plastic fasteners that resembled tiny dumbbells. While purists scoffed at the temporary nature of the fix compared to proper sewing, the button ear saved countless dress shirts, blouses, and jackets from wardrobe retirement. Do you still have one tucked away in a drawer somewhere? They're surprisingly durable little gadgets that still work decades later. Number 14. The Clapper, 1976.
Honey, turn off the light.
Has this ever happened to you? Presenting the Clapper.
Clap on, clap clap, clap off, clap clap. Has any other invention enjoyed such a catchy jingle? The Clapper, introduced in 1976 by Joseph Pedot, promised to revolutionize laziness by allowing Americans to control electrical appliances without getting off the couch. This sound-activated switch detected the distinctive pattern of 2 quick claps and responded by toggling the power to whatever was plugged into it. The Clapper plugged into standard outlets, with appliances then connected to the Clapper itself. Its built-in microphone could distinguish between ambient noise and deliberate clapping most of the time. Parents nationwide discovered they could convince children ghosts were real by clapping while the kids weren't looking. Despite its gimmicky nature, the Clapper addressed legitimate needs for the elderly and disabled, providing easier access to lighting and appliances. Modern smart homes with voice control owe a conceptual debt to this quirky invention that made convenience just 2 claps away. Number 13. Inflatable furniture, 1970s.
Looks good in any setting. Of course, one has to take care with pin.
Remember when sitting on your furniture meant you might bounce right off? The 1970s brought us inflatable furniture. Those air-filled plastic chairs and sofas that promised to revolutionize home decorating. Available in eye-catching colors like neon pink, electric blue, and translucent purple, these pneumatic pieces epitomize the decade's fascination with unconventional materials and playful design. Perfect for small apartments, dorm rooms, and spontaneous beach parties, inflatable furniture could be deflated for easy storage and transportation, assuming you could fold all that plastic neatly. Their popularity extended beyond practicality. These buoyant seats became cultural symbols of youthful rebellion against traditional home furnishings. The downsides? Punctures, uncomfortable stickiness on hot days, and the distinctive squeak produced whenever someone sat down. Today, inflatable furniture enjoys periodic revivals, proving that Americans never tire of sitting on air. Did your college dorm room feature one of these bouncy beauties? Number 12. Spray-on hair 1970s.
Just spray GLH on and it instantly covers your bald spot, leaving you with great-looking hair.
Balding? Not anymore. In the 1970s, Ron Popeil, the king of late-night infomercials, introduced a solution that seemed too good to be true, because it was. Spray-on hair promised to transform shiny scalps into luscious manes with a few pumps from an aerosol can. But what exactly was in that miraculous spray? Nothing more than colored fibers that adhered to existing hair and the scalp, creating the illusion of fullness. Marketed under names like GLH9, great-looking hair, the product looked surprisingly decent on low-definition television but resembled spray paint in real life. Popeil's enthusiastic demonstrations featured dramatic before and after transformations that captivated insomniacs nationwide. The product's main drawback? Rain, sweat, or even a gentle breeze could sabotage your new hair. Despite its shortcomings, spray-on hair remains an iconic example of America's eternal quest for quick-fix solutions to life's persistent problems. Did your dad ever try it? Number 11. Resealable cereal boxes, 1946 to 1960s. Did you know the humble resealable cereal box flap was invented by an 8-year-old? In 1946, young Mary Spieth was tired of stale breakfast cereal, so she experimented with cereal box flaps in her home. Her solution? A simple notch on one flap that fits into a slit on the other, creating a secure, resealable closure that kept cereal fresh. Unfortunately, Mary never patented her invention, and for the next 14 years, Americans continued suffering through stale cornflakes. It wasn't until the 1960s that cereal companies independently developed nearly identical closures. Mary's ingenuity went unrecognized and unrewarded, while her design quietly revolutionized packaging worldwide. Today, this closure system appears on everything from cereal to pasta to detergent boxes. It's a poignant reminder that innovation doesn't always bring fame or fortune, especially when you forget to file that patent. How many other everyday conveniences were someone's unrecognized brainchild? Number 10. Hovercraft 1955.
The hovercraft needs no introduction.
Is it a boat? Is it a plane? No, it's somewhere bizarrely in between. The hovercraft, invented by British engineer Christopher Cockerell in 1955, seemed like science fiction made real. Who needs wheels or a hull when you can float on a cushion of air? Cockerell's early experiments involved vacuum cleaners and tin cans before creating a working model that could glide effortlessly over land and water. Initially dismissed as a crazy contraption, the hovercraft faced significant skepticism from investors who couldn't imagine its practical applications. Despite the doubt, these air-cushioned vehicles eventually found their niche, particularly in military operations and as ferry services across the English Channel beginning in 1968. While they never revolutionized personal transportation as some predicted, hovercrafts represent that quintessential mid-century belief that conventional limitations were meant to be overcome. Have you ever ridden one? The experience is unlike any other mode of transportation. Number 9. Nuclear-powered cars, 1957.
The Ford Nucleon.
Ever dreamed of driving 5,000 miles without stopping for gas? In 1957, Ford unveiled the Nucleon, a concept car designed to run on a small nuclear reactor in the trunk. Wait, what? That's right. In the atomic age, when nuclear power promised unlimited clean energy, engineers seriously proposed putting miniature reactors in family sedans. The Nucleon's sleek design resembled a spacecraft more than an automobile, embodying America's space-age optimism. Ford claimed this atomic automobile would need refueling just once every 5,000 miles. Thankfully, safety concerns and practical challenges prevented these radioactive roadsters from ever reaching production. The concept remains a fascinating glimpse into an alternate future where nuclear power wasn't just for submarines and power plants, but for your daily commute. Did your parents ever imagine their family station wagon might someday be powered by uranium? Number 8. Smokeless ashtray, 1970s.
It filters out irritating smoke, allowing my family to breathe cleaner, fresher-smelling air.
Remember when smoking indoors was so common that we invented gadgets to deal with it rather than just taking it outside? The Ronco smokeless ashtray, another brainchild of infomercial king Ron Popeil, promised to solve the problem of secondhand smoke without ever questioning why we were smoking indoors in the first place. How's that for 1970s logic? This battery-powered device used a small fan to pull cigarette smoke through a replaceable filter, trapping the particles before they could spread throughout the room. The distinctive whirring sound earned it the nickname cigarette grinder among users. Priced around $10, about $40 today, smokeless ashtrays became common gifts for households with smokers. typically purchased by concerned spouses or children. While moderately effective at reducing visible smoke, they did little for the pervasive tobacco smell. Today, these relics seem bizarre in our smoke-free indoor environments, reminding us how much cultural attitudes towards smoking have shifted. Number 7. The Flowbee, 1988.
Introducing the Flowbee Precision Haircutting System. Get that freshly sucked hair you've always dreamed of.
It sucks, as it cuts. In the late 1980s, carpenter Rick Huntz revolutionized home haircuts with the Flowbee, a bizarre hybrid of vacuum cleaner and hair trimmer. This contraption attached to your household vacuum and used suction to pull hair straight before cutting it to a precise length. Did it work? Surprisingly, yes, at least for certain hairstyles. The Flowbee conquered 2 challenges of home haircuts, creating even lengths and cleaning up the mess. Various plastic spacers allowed different cutting length, while the vacuum instantly captured clippings. At $89.95, about $210 today, the Flowbee appealed to budget-conscious families tired of expensive salon visits. The commercials became late-night TV staples, though the product's unusual appearance made it an easy target for comedians. Despite the jokes, over 2 million units sold by the mid-1990s, and the product enjoys continued sales today. Did your family keep a Flowbee in the closet? And more importantly, could your friends tell when you'd had a Flowbee haircut? Number 6. Sea Monkeys, 1957.
There's something in here. Watch this. Whoa!
Who else felt betrayed when they discovered sea monkeys weren't actually tiny underwater people with crowns? These mail-order pets became a cultural phenomenon after their 1957 introduction by Harold von Braunhut. Advertised in comic books with illustrations showing humanoid creatures swimming in fantastic underwater kingdoms, the reality was somewhat less magical. Brine shrimp barely visible to the naked eye. Sea monkeys exploited a unique property of certain brine shrimp eggs, which can remain in suspended animation for years before hatching when placed in water. The marketing genius lay in the 3-step process. First add water conditioner, then add eggs, and watch them magically appear days later. Priced at just $1.25, about $12 today, they became one of America's most successful mail-order novelties, selling millions of kits annually. Despite inevitable disappointment upon seeing the actual creatures, sea monkeys remain available today, teaching generations of children important lessons about advertising versus reality. Did your childhood feature a tank of these microscopic pets?
Was also popular in the 70s, not as a prison, but as a pet. That's right, the pet rock.
Number 5. Pet Rock, 1975. What's smoother than a chia pet, quieter than a parakeet, and requires less maintenance than a goldfish? In 1975, advertising executive Gary Dahl answered with the Pet Rock, possibly the greatest masterpiece of marketing minimalism in consumer history.
First Pet Rocks to the stores October 1st, and by Christmas we'll have sold well over 1 million units. That kind of stuff just does.
For just $3.95, about $21 today, customers received an ordinary beach pebble nestled in a cardboard carrying case with air holes and straw bedding. The stroke of genius wasn't the rock itself, but the accompanying 32-page training manual filled with puns and jokes about caring for your geological companion. Sample instructions included training your pet rock to stay and play dead.
This is one of the less delightful parts of rock ownership, and is not for the faint-hearted. You may wish to turn away as your rock devours its meal.
Commands it executed flawlessly. Launched just before the 1975 Christmas season, Pet Rocks became an overnight sensation, selling over 1.5 million units in 6 months. Dahl earned over $15 million in today's dollars before the fad inevitably faded. The Pet Rock remains the ultimate testament to America's willingness to pay for cleverly packaged nothing. Did you or your parents ever own this maintenance-free pet?
Only for Chrysler and Plymouth and Dodge and DeSoto in 56 and 57.
Number 4. Car Record Player, 1956. Before 8 tracks, cassettes, or streaming services, how did motorists enjoy music on the road? In 1956, Chrysler attempted to solve this problem with the Highway Hi-Fi, a special record player designed specifically for in-car use. What could possibly go wrong with combining delicate vinyl records, a moving vehicle, and America's notoriously bumpy highways? Developed by CBS Laboratories, the system used specially made 7-inch records that played at the unusual speed of 16 RPM, allowing up to 45 minutes of music or speech per side. The unit mounted under the dashboard and featured an ingenious, counterbalanced tone arm designed to resist skipping during normal driving. Despite this engineering, the reality rarely matched the promise. Potholes sent needles skittering across valuable records, And the proprietary format meant owners couldn't play their existing record collection. Priced at $200, equivalent to $2,100 today, the Highway Hi-Fi was discontinued after just 2 years. Would you trust your favorite albums to this dashboard-mounted disc jockey? Number 3. Neck scrubbing collars. Invented in 1950, this plastic collar with internal bristles aimed to clean children's necks as they played. Unpopular and uncomfortable, it vanished quickly due to practicality issues.
Who says he has come up with a cure. It's the Amphibicar, an amphibious automobile that is equally at home on...
Number 2. Amphibicar 1961 to 1968. It's a car. It's a boat. It's not particularly good at being either. The Amphibicar, produced in Germany from 1961 to 1968, promised to revolutionize transportation by conquering both land and sea. With its convertible body, sealed underbelly, and propellers tucked behind the rear wheels, this amphibious automobile could drive straight into the water without sinking. Usually, approximately 4,000 Amphibicars were manufactured, with about 3,000 imported to America, where they became novelty items for the wealthy. President Lyndon B. Johnson famously owned one, delighting in terrifying unsuspecting guests by driving them into the lake at his Texas ranch while shouting that the brakes had failed. Though plagued by practical problems, slow speeds on both land and water, difficult saltwater corrosion, and complex maintenance, the Amphibicar remains one of the most beloved oddball vehicles ever created. Have you ever spotted one of these rare aquatic autos at a car show?
Your body reflects all your mood changes in a fascinating kaleidoscope of color, responding to your deepest secrets, your most hidden emotions. The beautifully crafted...
Number 1. Mood rings. 1975. Could your jewelry really know your emotions better than you do? In 1975, New York inventors Josh Reynolds and Maris Ambatz introduced the mood ring, an accessory that promised to visualize your inner feelings through changing colors. But how did this magical mind-reading jewelry actually work? The science was simpler than the marketing suggested. Thermochromic liquid crystals inside the stone responded to temperature changes in your fingers. Selling for about $45 for sterling silver settings, equivalent to $250 today, mood rings became an overnight sensation among the self-awareness-obsessed 1970s generation. Each color supposedly indicated a different emotion: blue for calm, green for neutral, amber for nervousness, and black for stress or anger. The rings typically functioned for only about 2 years before permanently settling into black. Did your mood ring ever accurately reflect your emotions? Or did your perpetually cold hands condemn you to eternal stressed readings regardless of your actual feelings? And there you have it. 25 strange inventions from the 1950s to 1970s that never made sense. From strange inventions like the Pigeon Camera to bizarre gadgets like the gyro boat, this journey through 1950s inventions, 1960s inventions, and 1970s inventions has showcased America's endless fascination with quirky devices and weird technology. These retro gadgets and unusual inventions might seem laughable today, but they represent an era when vintage appliances and home gadgets were evolving rapidly. Many began as infomercial products, odd inventions that promised to solve problems we didn't know we had. These novelty items and forgotten technology pieces might not have survived the test of time, but they tell us something fascinating about ourselves. From unique inventions like the flying bedstead to creative gadgets like the buttoneer, these historical inventions have become nostalgic products that capture our imagination. So next time you complain about your smartphone, remember, it could have been one of these silly gadgets instead.